here for a brand new All Access, the first one of 2022. I'm here with the amazing Rufus Wainwright. Rufus, thank you so much for joining us today and for taking some time to chat.
Thanks for having me.
So just to start off, I know you grew up in a very musical family. Music kind of always surrounded you, but I'm curious if music was always kind of your set path, or was there ever any option that was another option to do something else in your life, or was just being surrounded by music always kind of put you on that path?
Yeah. I mean, I was quite good at visual arts, and I did actually go to art school for 2 seconds, and interestingly enough, during the pandemic, I've returned to that medium, to drawing and painting and stuff. But that was still always kind of a sideshow. Music was pretty much always front and center and all-encompassing for me, which was fantastic. But sometimes I ponder what could have been different if I'd had a few other choices. But it was pretty set.
Did you feel pressured as a child to like that? Like, my family is doing this, and this is what I have to do, or is it something that you really gravitated towards?
I mean, I had the desire to do it. I was very precocious and constantly showing off and wanting to sing and be in the spotlight. And my mother, thankfully, was in show business, so she kind of knew how to on one hand focus that energy and also capitalize off of it. We sang with her, we sang with her and with my mother and her sister, the McGarrigle sisters, and but she didn't abuse it either. Like, it wasn't like I was made to tour all the time or anything, but it was she had a good balance with that. As far as that, she had a very good balance.
So from your childhood, what kind of music left a lasting imprint on you? Were there any artists or styles of music that kind of helped make a lasting imprint on yourself and kind of help form your own voice?
Yeah, I mean, it started really young, with really interesting stuff. I mean, there was a lot of folk music, and when I say folk music, I mean I appreciate Joan Baez, and I love Joan Baez. I love Peter, Paul, and Mary, kind of that popular folk stuff. But ours was like stuff like field recordings, the Library of Congress, material, Bahamian singing, stuff that was really like raw and very, very, and French Canadian and murder ballads and stuff. So it was pretty intense and very, I'm very fortunate to have that sort of baseline in my work. And then also I got into more lighter fare, like Judy Garland and the Beatles and everything else. But it was a lot of I think whatever music was around the house was always of the highest quality in whatever genre it was in.
No, I completely agree, because growing up, I went into filmmaking, but from growing up, my parents always, I kind of gravitated to whatever my parents were listening to and kind of helped shape your tastes and your voice, essentially. I'm curious, were you ever struggling to find what is my voice, to kind of find what you're trying to say and what your sound is going to be?
I mean, I was searching all the time. I wouldn't say it was a struggle necessarily, because I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed spending hours at the piano and just sort of daydreaming and getting lost in my creative life. I will say though that when I have a distinct memory of hearing Nina Simone for the first time. When I was in like 16 or 17, really getting into her albums, and mostly her solo piano voice albums. And that's when I knew that I had a sound, in a sense, like the way she, took all these elements, whether it's from jazz or classical or soul or gospel or whatever, and even pop, and put them into this one kind of laser strike. I knew that should be my goal, what she did. I didn't want to imitate her necessarily, but she was my guiding light for sure.
Absolutely. So maybe a bit of a vague question, but what is your definition of a song? Like, what does that word mean to you? And I guess encapsulating what you do for a living in terms of being a songwriter and a composer.
Well, right now I'm in a very interesting position because I did this song "Secret Sister" for
Yes.
this great documentary "Rebel Hearts," um, and I've also done my own albums, and I've sung a lot of people's material. At the moment, also I'm writing a lot of songs for Broadway productions. I mean,
Oh
nothing's been
wow.
announced yet, but
Yeah.
I'm really writing probably more now than I ever have, which is kind of shocking, actually. But and that's been a very kind of, how can I say this, a very kind of granular expose of like what songwriting is, because you're writing for these characters who have to
Yeah.
engender some kind of feeling to the audience, to an audience immediately, that has nothing to do with you as a performer. So it's yeah, I'm putting it to the test right now, and I think there is, I'm a structuralist.
Yeah.
I have a kind of, I'm more traditional in my approach, but it is also very much also rooted also in a kind of Germanic, how can I say it, like leader sensibility, meaning that I'll also like stretch the envelope too.
Yeah, yeah. And would you say that this work that you're doing for Broadway, for musical theater, would that be similar to writing? You've done two operas, but writing similar to what you did for your opera work, or is it completely different? Is there any kind of connection
No,
there?
it's
Or
very, writing
very
opera is a
different.
total animal. I mean, that's not songwriting.
Right. Yeah.
You have arias here and there and stuff like that, and overtures which are similar, but it's really, that's its own kind of department. Songwriting is, what's interesting about when you're doing it for the theater though is that you have to stick by the kind of concept of songwriting, but it is nonetheless in a dramatic context. So
Sure.
so it
Yeah.
has to sort of fit a lot of bills, and so it's very yeah, I'm enjoying the process.
So I'd love to talk about kind of your writing process just in general, not necessarily for writing a song to a film or anything, but just for your general songwriting. I usually ask composers and songwriters kind of where the first note comes from. And I'm curious, what's your starting point? Do you have to switch your brain into songwriting mode, or is it something that just comes naturally to you, random parts throughout the day? I'm curious what kind of triggers the first creative ideas to start flowing.
The main thing, and any composer will tell you this, I think you just have to be really receptive at all times.
Mm,
You never shut off really.
yeah.
So if you think of something on the toilet, or in the middle of an argument, or just reading a menu, like it comes at any moment. And so you have to be ready and waiting, and also able to identify that. I mean, I always, I do think that there are songwriters. There certainly is, and especially in LA where I live. There is this thing where they sit down and write a song
Yeah.
together, like, we're going to write this type of song, and that fascinates me because it isn't. I've tried to do that, and it's just, I find it very difficult. I like to just sort of receive these kind of coded messages from the ether, and then just kind of like go with that. But that being said, I have had experiences where like I'll have these little threads, and I'll just kind of hold on to them, and then maybe I'll sit down and really hammer it out with somebody as well. But I think the main thing is just to be receptive at all times. And then the other thing that's important for me is I very much distinguish between both two instruments. I mean, I play the piano and I play the guitar.
Right.
And for
Right.
me, that's like piano songs and guitar songs. They're very separate entities. So that's the thing. And that, if anything, that's just like a tool. It doesn't mean that it has to be on the piano or it has to be the guitar, but it just sort of leads me on. And then and in fact, often sometimes what I've done is that I've written a song on a piano and it's not quite doing it for me, and then I'll
Mm,
switch to the guitar, and that'll give it more of a rhythm and more of a kind of more of a dance, kind of concept or something. So it's so there's just little experiments like that, and the other thing too is lyrics are the most important part.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
that's the most exacting part for me. Melodies come very incredibly fast, and not, I wouldn't say easily, but they're definitely, they're in there. The lyrics I have to really search for and kind of hammer out.
Does a lyric ever come before the melody, or is it always kind of hard that you have to find a
Maybe
melody
a little
before?
bit. I mean, there'll be a lyric before a melody, and then I'll think of a melody to go with that lyric, and then the melody will just be, go off to the races, and I have to kind of catch up with the words. So that's how I do it. I've never really worked with a lyricist before. I mean, I've worked with poets.
Mm-hmm.
I've written words for Shakespeare sonnets and other people, but it's yeah, that's sort of how I do it.
So for you, is writing a solitary process? I know you've collaborated with other artists in the past, but do you like to bounce ideas off friends and family? Do you let people in to see unfinished pieces before to get feedback, or do you like to be completely alone with it until you feel it's ready to show?
I used to do that only with one person, which was my mother. I mean, I used to do it with my mother a lot. Unfortunately, she passed away 10 years ago. And but we would have many evenings hanging out where we would sing each other ideas and kind of go over material, and we would kind of both, praise each other's work and critique it as well. Like, she wasn't an easy customer, but so yeah. And I can't say that since her death I've found anything comparable. I mean, there was a time also years ago when I was a lot younger and, partying and stuff and going out every night, which was, a wonderful time of my life. But where we did, sit around and play guitars and
Yeah.
kind of bounce things off each other a lot more. But now it's more, I'm more solitary in it. I would say though that in terms of, yeah, it's different though. But I think maybe that's why I'm writing a lot of music for the theater though, because that does force you to have to go out and be more communicative. You have to play it for the director, you have to play it for the book writer, and it has to fit in. So I guess I am doing it more now, but more with that music, with the musical work.
So you're not just a songwriter, you're also a performer, and you perform, a lot of the work that you write. I've interviewed songwriters such as Diane Warren, who is brilliant, and I love her, and but she's focused on writing songs and then writing them for other artists, and she typically will not perform her music. So I'm curious if you see the performance part, the performance aspect of your process as an individual part of it. Is it kind of like, okay, I write the song and now I have to do the performance, or do you kind of just see it as one long process from start to finish, from is it inception of the song, the writing, and then all the way to the performance?
I don't know. I mean, look, I've been very fortunate to have certain amazing artists perform my work. It's not a common thing with my songs. I mean, I'm not like Burt Bacharach or anything, which I wish I had that kind of situation going on. But I've had Shirley Bassey and George Michael and Jane Birkin, like some amazing people sing some of my work, and I always enjoy that. I don't feel that it has yet to be quite understood though, in the at least in the popular realm. What I do, I think I'm still very connected to my material, mainly because my voice is such a kind of animalistic thing, and so people really associate my songs with my voice. I think they could be divided at some point more. Someone could make, like, Barbra Streisand, maybe not, but something like that could do. I'm singing the songs of Rufus Wainwright, like a real big sing. It could be interesting. I'd love that, but it hasn't quite happened yet. But just putting it out there.
Are you
Billie Eilish, sing the songs of Rufus Wainwright? Sorry.
Are you? I feel like when you're performing your own music, that being in such a vulnerable state, kind of presenting yourself in front of a live audience. I'm curious, are you nervous when you do that? Is that a nerve-wracking thing for you, or is it completely comfortable at this point in your career?
I mean, it depends. I'm not incredibly nervous. But I'll have fits of it at times, but it's, you just kind of work through it. I mean, I'm always nervous for some reason when I play New York. I don't know what that is. And it can either work for me or against me. and it's important to be a little bit nervous.
Sure,
If you're
yeah.
not, if you're never nervous, then there's something off. So I yeah, but it's not debilitating
Yeah.
anyway. So I use it to my advantage in most cases, and then sometimes I just forget something and the audience laughs and we move on.
How is a performance different from when you're recording an album versus performing live? How do you see those two separate things?
Oh, they're very different. Oh yeah, the live thing is obviously it's in the moment, and there's an audience, and it's sort of about the atmosphere and so forth. And recording is far more kind of clinical and
Yeah.
very kind of more mysterious, actually, recording. I mean, I've had a very interesting experience of late, because I will be putting out an album of me doing Judy Garland songs
Mhm.
that I recorded at in honor of her 100th birthday, of Judy Garland's 100th birthday coming up in June. I'll be doing some concerts in New York at the City Winery, just with like a little combo, and in Chicago as well. But anyways, and those will be live, obviously. But then I have this album accompanying it, or of some of the songs that I recorded at Capitol Studios,
Right.
in actually some of the room in the room where Judy recorded a lot of her stuff, and also using her mic
Oh,
that she
wow.
used. And that was such a trip. That was a real trip, because it was, yeah, just all of these strange elements come into play. The ghosts in the room, and then technology, and then also just the world at that time was intense, because it was like right in the middle of a really brutal lockdown, and so it was, and they're of course amazing songs.
So looking at your entire body of work, it's been, I mean, an amazing journey through all your albums. And I'm curious if you see yourself as a better songwriter at this point in your career than maybe when you first started off. You've lived more life. We all go through highs and lows, especially when we're younger and we're trying to still find our place. And I'm curious now, if you look back at it, do you think you're a
Yeah.
better songwriter now than you were when you were younger?
um well,
Or a different songwriter? I don't know if that's a
I
better
don't
word.
know.
Not
I
better
don't
or
know. I
worse.
mean, I really have to reserve judgment on that,
Okay.
because I am, as I said, I've catapulted myself into this Broadway world, and I'm writing for various pieces that will be announced at some point. One very soon. And it is, we'll see what the people think. It'll be my first experience of like really sitting back and just having all of my songs sung by other people, and
Yeah.
really have the music itself become the sole kind of protagonist.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I hope I'm writing better songs. I better be.
So what's the most creatively rewarding part of the process for you? Is it that initial stage when you're sitting down and just, tinkering out the first few notes, or is it when you have a finished product and you get to perform it in front of a live audience? Which part of that is the most creatively rewarding?
Well, you know, I think the process of writing
Yeah.
is in the end of the day. Though those, singing is a close second, and performing and stuff and playing an instrument is right up there too. But yeah, it's the process of actually sitting at the piano and writing a song is. I mean, that was something I read recently where I think with my friend Ben Lee, who was saying that it was just something he said on Facebook, where he's like, I still experience that thing where after I finished writing a song where I'm like, what the hell just happened? Like it's still very mysterious. I think it's the
Yeah.
mystery that's still very strong and very kind of palpable, and doesn't really go away, which is nice.
Do you ever listen to your old work? Do you go back and listen to old albums, or is
Yeah,
it just
no,
something that kind of
I
just
do. I'll
disappears
admit
once you're
it.
done?
I'll admit
Yeah.
it. I do. I mean, I don't know if it's a great thing to do, but I'll go back, and I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of, I write very much about my life,
Yeah, it's very
and
autobiographical, right?
about people that I know or knew, experiences I had. So I do kind of relive them a little bit when I hear the music. So some people
Yeah.
don't, like Randy Newman, for instance, doesn't write anything about his personal life. I don't know if he goes back and listens to songs or not, but at least I have an alibi.
Yeah, no, for me, it's like when I look back at something that I've written maybe like, 10, 15 years ago, or it just, whether I was in a weird state of mind, if maybe I was depressed at the time, but looking back and seeing what I was writing, it's kind of this weird looking back in the mirror thing, or a time capsule, or I don't know how you want to call it, just like time machine going back, but it's a strange thing for me, but for sure. Yeah. Yeah. But I do want to, we could sit here all day talking about your entire discography and breaking down songs, analyze the songs, which would be amazing. But I don't want to. I'm not going to sit here for the rest of the evening. But I do want to talk about your song "Secret Sister" that you wrote for the Rebel Hearts documentary. Which for people can check out. It's on Discovery Plus right now. And Rebel Hearts, it's a documentary, the story of a group of nuns in the 1960s that stood up to the patriarchy of the Catholic Church and who stood up for women's rights and, paved a path for future generations to follow. So firstly, what about Pedro Poza's documentary spoke to you? What attracted you to this project?
Well, I actually had a personal kind of connection to the nuns because a relative of mine, my grandfather's second wife, who I grew up with, who I knew very, very well, still
Oh,
do.
wow.
She was brought up by the nuns,
Wow.
and during the kind of at the height of that whole period. So she knew Sister Carita, and she was at Immaculate Heart at the school on in LA. So I always heard stories about that time. So there was that, and then also just the world we live in today is so lacking in terms of social justice
Yes. Yeah.
warrior. Nobody's hitting the streets here, and I mean there was moments when it was happening, but I feel like we're so exhausted, and you know what, we just can't be right
Yes.
now. So I think it's important to just keep trying to get people to you know really go to battle for what's right, and in a peaceful and loving way,
Yeah.
and so forth.
So I really love the song, especially looking at the lyrics coming from like a male's perspective, looking on to kind of the topic and the themes here. So I'm curious, what about the film spoke to you, and how did you approach the song, and what did you want it to say essentially for this film?
Yeah, well, I think some Pedro he's Brazilian, so I think there was sort of a Brazilian kind of it's got a Brazilian beat, so I
Hmm.
think that was a bit of a nod to him. And a lot of it is also I live in LA, and I do actually see that school a lot because it's along the way when I drive our daughter to school in the morning. So I see the Immaculate Heart in the mornings, and I also see the incredible, especially if I drive down Hollywood Boulevard, just the amount of suffering and
Yeah.
homelessness, and just like the broken heart of the city. And so it's just sort of the image of the gates opening up and the nuns coming down and joining everybody to just trying to fix the damage at hand. uh, and so yeah, I think it's about that idea of like doing, and it's a very Catholic thing, to be, the
Hmm.
good Samaritan, and to be, to work with the poor and so forth. So it sort of comes from that idea.
So when you're writing a song for a film, you have a movie to work off of. You have a a body of work that you're looking at, and that's kind of informing what the song is going to be thematically. So I'm curious, how is it different than writing completely, organically, whether you're writing a normal song for an album where you're just coming up with things from scratch versus this kind of process, and how does that differ?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing with film, which I don't like, is that it's very hard to figure out if it's going to work or not. It just
Yeah.
sort of happens or it doesn't. I've written many songs for films that they're like, it's a great song, it totally has the right message, it works, it's the right length and everything, and then they're just like, it just doesn't. They're not married, the
Yeah.
visuals,
Yeah.
and it has nothing to do with either being anything wrong. It's just it has this strange kind of mystery when they suddenly really mix together, and that I haven't. I think some writers can really master that. I haven't ever attempted to really get into the nitty gritty with that, but yeah, so it's tough. It's tough actually with film.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's maybe puts a box around things a little bit. So
yeah. But I mean, I still want to do it. I'm still open for the challenge. I'm not saying anything. In fact, if anything, I'd like to do it more just to get better at it.
So I know you've kind of, you've branched out. You've done opera. You're now doing musical theater. I'm curious, would you ever go more into film composing and writing orchestral music? And
I probably will eventually. For me, touring and being away from home is getting more tricky, especially with a kid and also pushing 50. So it's sort of yeah. I think with film you can't do that. You can just stay in LA and just work there. So that is becoming more and more attractive.
I think you'd be an amazing voice in visual storytelling. Yeah, I mean, you already are, but I just think more so with film scores. I think you. And then again, congratulations on Secret Sister and Rebel Hearts. It's such a fantastic song, and I know it's getting a lot of love right now. But before we wrap up, I do want to touch on one song. It's an important song, I think, especially now with with the world the way it is. I'm sure a lot of people can look on this song and find some sort of emotional connection to it. And it's Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, which of course you've done a cover for. It's a song that it's so unique because it's inspired so many covers. It's been shared across the world. And it's, I know you have a more personal connection to Leonard and his family, but I'm curious just on your take on something, just the idea of this song having this life and kind of going from artist to artist, and all these artists doing their interpretation of it, whether it's changing the tone or the tempo or kind of imprinting themselves on it, and the fact that they're all bringing something new to it. And I'm just curious on your thoughts on that.
I think what's fascinating about that song is that it's completely versatile in terms of settings. I mean, you can have it can be sung at a funeral, it could be sung at a wedding, it can be sung at I actually was the first time that I'd sung it for the movie Shrek.
Right.
And it was on the album, and that was a big success, but I didn't really, that was just sort of done off the cuff in a lot of ways. Like, I was just asked to do it one afternoon and I did, but then it was requested that I sing it alone at this, it was like a party for the Philadelphia, like, hockey team or something in Miami, and they liked the song, so I sang it at their party. That's when I first learned it, like, alone at the piano. My mother taught it to me because I had an accompanist in the recording. So I worked it out and sang it, which didn't take that long. But so anyways, but then since then I've just countless events of all types that you can sing that song out, and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's I remember I heard a cover, it was on Scrubs, and then that was really big. And I mean, so many people have, and I think it just shows the power of music. And I think that just shared connection with people and just exploring the human condition. I think that's what you do with your original work. And Rufus, I just want to thank you for chatting. I know you're having a nice evening in Berlin right now, and I don't want to take up too much more of it. And it's been just such an honor to sit with you and chat. And thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.